was trying to be wild and go 1 minute early. Good evening, and welcome to the council meeting of July 31st, 2023. The meeting is being live streamed on the Town of Kentville YouTube channel. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. Our thoughts are with the municipalities, their staff, work crews at all levels, and first responders as they continue to work through the aftermath of the devastating flooding that has ravished our beautiful province. We are thankful for the response and the continued support. We are very pleased to have interpretation services offered at this meeting this evening. The next meeting of council will be on September the 11th, as council does not typically meet in the month of August. However, members of council have already received information from the province requesting them to attend some meetings during the month of August, and so if we have any changes to our schedule, it will be on our Town of Kentville website if there are any changes to meetings. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting package? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? I will remind members of council that we are in decision-making mode and we should be mindful of our decision-making wheel. We will be voting by electronic means for all votes except administrative. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? Councillor Zabian.
Yeah, thank you. Number 5, item 2.
Thank you, Councillor. I will ask you to step away from your chair at that time. Thank you. Director Bell is sitting in this evening as our acting CAO, and we do have quorum. We have been provided with a proposed agenda. CAO, do you have any changes to that agenda?
Yes, Mayor Snow, the order is changed to make the presentation of the draft audited financial statement prior to other business. So under item 4, presentation, we have 4A, audited financial statements by Andy Force, the town auditor, and 4B, the audit committee update.
Thank you very much, acting director. We'll just go with Director Bell. Acting
Sure.
CAO seems kind of long. All right, so council, if you have your original agenda, you'll have those changes, which leaves only the recommendations from the audit committee under our new business. Are there any further changes to our agenda? If I could have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. So moved. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Huntley. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. The minutes of the July 26, 2023 council meeting have been distributed for your review. If there are no changes, the minutes are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red. Are there any changes? We'll go with a no then. And as well, you have the minutes for the July 10th, 2023 special council meeting. If there are no changes, they're approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate. No changes? All right. Therefore, we will begin our presentation. The first presentation is our audited financial statement, and our auditor, Andy Force, will make the presentation. And after the presentation, and once council has accepted these documents, they will be uploaded to the Town of Kentville website for viewing as required. The floor is yours, Andy.
Thank you. I just learned that it can go up and down. Last year I was like this. Apologize. So we have recently concluded our audit process again. We had 2 meetings last week with the audit committee. One was sort of an interim update on how the audit process was going. And on Thursday, when the audit work was completed, we had another meeting to review the financial statements, sort of discuss the variety of issues within them. And then the audit committee made a recommendation for approval of those financial statements. So That was great. I like the comment first about how lively those conversations were and healthy. I thought the participation amongst both the council members and the committee members from the community were excellent. We went 2 full hours on Thursday, and I think we were pretty close to that on the Monday before. So that's great to see that there's interest in debate, differing opinions on certain matters, but ultimately, a joint recommendation was made and passed unanimously to approve the financial statement. So that was great to see. We do encourage a lot of discussion and involvement from the audit committee, both during the audit and throughout the season. And I know that the town of Kentville has had that over the last few years. That's great to see. We did our thorough level of examination. We do planning phase, which we started this year in January through March. And then we have sort of an audit evidence gathering phase, which would have been through near the middle of June, right up until close to the end of last week. And then we have a conclusion phase where we take all that evidence, we use our professional judgment, and we have to come to a conclusion on whether or not your financial statements are presented fairly. And the concept of fairness would be, would a reasonable person's opinion change by any error or omission from those financial statements? So we have a set of guidelines we have to use for accounting. In your case, it's public sector accounting standards. And we need to make sure that all of your recorded information, your note disclosures, your schedules are in compliance with those set of standards. And we are happy to report that they are. I won't go over, we could be here all night going page by page, so there's about 40 pages, so I won't go over that because the audit committee has done that, but there are a few points I'd like to raise. One, there's a new, after approximately 34, 35 years of Deb Kroll being Director of Finance, you have a new Director of Finance this year who started in March. That always brings some uncertainty. But we were very, very impressed and pleased with the continuity amongst the quality of accounting. Your financial statements have changed a little bit, and just in terms of format and style and presentation, they are fully compliant, but I would recommend that all members of council and residents as well, when they are published to the website, take a peek. I'm very impressed with the presentation of them, but they are a little bit different, so it would be good for everyone in the town to familiarize themselves with the new sort of presentation and offer feedback as you would. While we do a very thorough level of audit testing, we also have to evaluate internal controls of the town. And we don't offer an opinion, because that's not what an audit does. That would be a separate form of audit on your internal controls, but we do have some observations that we'd like to report. I keep hitting the button, sorry. So there's 3 levels of possible controlled deficiencies. There'd be a material weakness, and that we would determine to be the most severe. We would ask for an immediate and urgent action plan to remediate those issues. These would be types of issues that could lead to material misstatements in your financial statement. So those would be very, very serious. The middle category would be a significant deficiency. Those would be perhaps not as severe, but also would require an action plan that would need to be met over the next 12 months or so prior to the next audit. And the third category is just sort of an other matters for discussion topic. They are unlikely to lead to any possible misstatement in your financials. However, they're worth mentioning for best practices. So we did have one finding this year, and it was under that third category of an other matter or an other deficiency. So I do have a letter prepared. I would like to read that if you don't mind. I apologize for reading, but it's just simple that way. And I'll just get right to the matter of it because I've sort of given the preamble already. There were no material weaknesses. There were no significant deficiencies. However, during year-end procedures, management identified in some cases unused vacation time was being carried forward and paid out when an employee terminates their employment. Now, in 2022, the sick policy was amended to allow for that. However, there was one occurrence that was discovered by management prior to the policy change, which probably was the reason for the policy to change. That sick time was paid out. And then subsequent to the policy change, it's part of your policy. However, the problem there was when the policy was changed, there was a financial implication. In this case, there should have been a liability recorded to accrue the amount of possible liability in the future. Now that liability was picked up subsequent to the policy changing during management's year-end process, which is a lovely thing to see, because that tells me as the auditor and you as counsel that your management and financial staff are reviewing things on an ongoing basis. But best practice would be, when you change a policy, to do a thorough examination to make sure that any financial implications are immediately recorded or at least thought through. Okay, so that was our only finding, and it's not a significant issue. It's minor, and it was nice to see that it was picked up on its own sort of controlled process by management. So that was our only finding this year. I would like to thank management for their incredible assistance. I've been doing this audit mostly consistently since 2006, for the most part, and different firms, same auditor, unfortunately for you perhaps, who knows, but I would like to point out that there's been one staff the entire time, Robin Page, who has been absolutely instrumental to our audit process. I know Deb Kroll, of course, was instrumental as well, and Wanda Matthews this year, but Robin really has been our primary source of contact for a lot of these years, and she has been an absolutely incredible resource for us as auditors, made our life incredibly easy. I just can't even tell you how wonderful the information we get from your staff is, and I do understand that she's retiring this year, so I would just like to commend her for all those years of incredible work from the audit staff over at least 2 decades, if not longer, for Robin. So that's really the extent of my report. If there are any questions, I'm very happy to answer any or offer extra information if you'd like.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Council, if you have any questions, they can be directed directly to our auditor.
Got off easy.
Wow. All right. Well, Andy, thank you very much for your time and your effort. And we'll get these documents signed off and sent back to you, as well the letter detailing what we're doing for the matter that was discovered. You will also receive that letter.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And I now open the podium up to the 2 resident members of our audit team, Mr. Jim Noonan and Ms. Susan McDougall.
You're taller than I am. Oh, the down button.
It's pretty snazzy, isn't it?
It's awesome.
Too low.
Thank you. We have the honor of being appointees of the citizens of the town of Kentville at large. And what our role is quite simple. We get to overview, see the makings of the audit, the process, the recommendations, and the inside of the financial situation of the town. And along the process, there is something else that comes out. It's called a financial condition indicator. Now, these indicators are used as a reference point that we would have for comparing ourselves to other municipalities and towns. And that way we have some type of benchmark. I mean, we can say how well are we doing here, but also as a benchmark to who else we have as other communities within the province. There are 24 other so-called towns in the province of Nova Scotia for 2020 and 2021. Overall, 13 were considered low-risk towns financially. 8 were moderate risk, 4 were high risk. To determine that, there are 12 indicators that are used for analyzing a town's overall financial ability. 9, so you measure just like as they were mentioning earlier, there's a green, yellow, red indicators. 9 of them, town of Kentville, low risk. 3 were moderate, and you may say, okay, well, why don't you focus on the 9 that are good? No, we're not going to do that. We're going to focus on the moderate. Moderate means it's okay, but you may want to look at it. Here are the 3. The first one, 4.1% of median household income is required to pay the average tax bill in Kentville. What that means is less than 4% of median household is ideal, so we're right at the benchmark. But this is an indicator the town can use to assess the affordability of people paying taxes in relation to the current services that we have in this town. And there was a brochure that's been pushed out from the town as well to give an indication of some of the measurements we have. 45% of our residents rent. We have 37% spending more than 30% on shelter. We have 19% reporting eating less, identifying food insecurity because there was not enough money for at least once over the last year that they could not afford to eat. Now, why am I saying this is because that's the reality of our town. We have a broad section of people within our town. Recognizing that, the second indicator is worth noting. We only had a 3-year change in tax base rate of 6.1%. The inflation rate of 6.7% is greater. So what we're saying is we're not keeping up with the cost of living. But the factor that when you take a look at it is when you take a look at the town of Kentville, the town we're here for, is that for amazing amount of services are available to everybody. And we're still continuing to try to modify and keeping the taxes down. So can you imagine from an audit point of view, they're recommending that maybe we should charge more. It basically value added, it's great value. The other one is, which is always an important one, is operating reserves of 13.4%. A lower risk category is greater than 20%, and the indicator provides the value of funds set outside for a rainy day. It's really the rainy day fund. And as we've all gone through in our world in the last while, boy, I'm telling you, there's a lot of rain. So, and it's hard sometimes to save, but basically, when we looked at, for Susan and myself, looking at it is saying, when you take a look at the financial structure of the town and what we've been able to have, there are few at this level in Nova Scotia and in the Maritimes. And since we have a choice of living here, this is pretty good. And from a citizen point of view, that's what our look is. So we wanted to bring out the fact that, yeah, everybody can say, well, yeah, it's all good, and that's what you're saying. But as compared to other communities in this province and in the Maritimes, this is really good, and we're very proud of that. So I think in conclusion, I'd like to say the following. It's been a tough time for everybody. Doesn't matter where you live. And here, the only thing we're missing is a bad mosquito season because the flood and the fires and you know, polar vortex, we've had it. But the thing that is in common between this and the great services that we have in this town are the people that come here every day to provide goods and services in our town. The people, the employees of the town, who come regardless of the weather, regardless of whatever condition, and still try to do their best to make this town the best it can be. The only thing I mention this at large is gratitude will go a long way in this environment. To say that, see somebody going by that's doing the infrastructure out there day after day, just doing whatever it takes to make this town a better town, say thank you. It's just say thank you. Because sometimes there's not a lot more than that to go around. So on behalf of the citizens, I think that's on my voice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. I will just, before I say just a few comments, I will clarify. The auditor did not say that the town should raise its taxes. Just to clarify,
That was the province.
that's not what the auditor said.
No,
No.
the indicator.
The indicator said, you know, for all of the goods and services that you provide, you could raise taxes, given all that you have. So, you know, not a bad problem to have if you think about it. So just to add on to what Jim said, it is a privilege to represent the citizens of the town and to be able to have that deeper look into the finances. What I care about as a citizen of this town is, how are we doing? Are we financially responsible, viable today, tomorrow? What is going to be in place in the future? And that's what I go into these audit meetings really looking at, is how are we doing, and is this the best that we can be? And it takes great comfort, or it provides great comfort to me when we can look and say, you know what, we have an amazing town. We have a lot of noise at times, but when you pull that back and you look at how are we doing as a town, we're doing amazing. We really are. When you think about all of the recreation services, facilities, the various infrastructure, the things, the festivals and celebrations that we do. There are not a lot of towns in this province. I would even venture to say much broader, probably nationally, that do pull off these kinds of things, and that we can say, you know what, we don't have an operating deficit. We do have dollars put aside for the future needs and the growth of this town, and we do have people who are committed to that. So I just wanted to add, echoing Jim's comments as well, that we leave this process feeling really good and confident in the people that are managing the town and in the outcomes that we have. And as a citizen, that feels really good. That's why I want to live here. We were talking about it earlier. We choose to live here. We don't have to live here. We choose to live here. And it's because of all of those things that are provided and how well managed things are. So I'll just say thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to the staff. I love the comment around gratitude. I will make sure to do that, and thank you. Have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you. Council, did you have any questions for our citizen members of the committee? Councilor Maxwell.
Thank you for your work. Mr. Noonan, you brought up about the financial indicators, condition indicators, and that we could, if we wanted to, raise our taxes. I'm just wondering how close we are to maintaining the services that we have with the taxes that we have. Like, how close are we before we have to start cutting services in this town without raising taxes?
My comment would be on this is that I don't know if I don't think we're in a position to be able to do that. However, from the processes that we've seen over the last, well, this is my second year, and your third, is the conversation that's taken place, especially at and all I can comment on is at the audit committee level, the openness and transparency is the collection of information to be able to do that. I will say that the services that are provided, you have one of two choices. You can either cut services or increase revenue, or a combination of both. That's the only formula that I'm aware of. But that's not for us to decide, and I can't even comment on that. I will say this. We do come from a place of strength that gives us options and time to review and look at situations, at least open from discussion from my vantage point. But anything more than that, I can't comment.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. And thank you for the citizen appointees that sit on this committee. I really, really enjoy being on the audit committee. I love numbers. I just wanted to make a couple of, they weren't actually questions for the citizen appointees, but there were just a couple of comments in the report to the audit committee that Director Matthews had done up, and two things I think are really, really worth emphasizing. And Mayor Snow, you may be emphasizing some other things, but I think one of the things that was talked about with the tangible capital assets is that that the town's solid cash position means that there's no limited and no reliance on bank indebtedness to finance operations. That was a key piece for me. And the other point, we talk a lot about the perpetual fund and how it aids the town moving forward with the operating piece of our budget. And it says the town's financial position is stable due to the wise investment policies and prudent use of the perpetual reserve fund. So I think those 2 points are worth making note of for the rest of council and for the citizens, and that we're very, very fortunate to be in the financial position that we are in, and that gives me great comfort. So thank you, and thank you for your contribution. Yeah, thanks.
Anything else? All right, well, thank you both for your commitment to our audit committee. All right, now that we've had our presentations, we will move on to our recommendations arising from the CAC meeting, which occurred on July 10th, and they will be presented by Deputy Mayor Savage, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will start with the transportation maintenance request. At the July 10th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Dave Bell renewed the request by Council to obtain pricing to repair or replace the sidewalk along Cornwallis Street from Valley Tire to Exhibition Street. He asked for approval to withdraw $42,000 from operating reserves to support this replacement. Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council approve the repair and replacement work for the Cornwallis Street sidewalk, and further the repair and replacement work for the Elm Street sidewalk, and further that $42,000 be allocated for this work from the Kentville 2023-2024 CAP investment plan. I so move.
Deputy, that Elm Street should just be Elm Street, not a sidewalk. It's the low, there's a typo.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's just for the work on Elm Street.
Correct.
Yes.
So I will revise as you noted.
Yes,
Thank you.
please, thank you.
So moved.
All right, do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor York, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the repair and paving of the Cornwallis Street sidewalk, and further the paving of Elm Street, and further approve the additional cost of $41,000 to the 2023-2024 capital investment plan. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Acting CAO Bell, I'm curious if there's any underground infrastructure or any work that's slated for the near future for either one of these. Like, I know when they did Condon Avenue, they ended up repaving it just to turn around the next year, dig it all up and redo the water, sewer, and storm. Is there anything slated?
No, for neither street or neither area, Councillor Gerard. Elm Street, there is a sanitary sewer that goes down towards, as we call it, Mosquito Holler there, towards Valley Tire, but that goes sort of on an angle through the sidewalk. But the sidewalk itself, there's no infrastructure there, and that sidewalk definitely needs some upgrading. Elm Street, of course, there are aged pipes under that street, but at this point in time, it really just needs a recap in order to bring it back to better standards due to the increased traffic since the closure of Canaan. That section of Canaan Avenue has increased the traffic on Elm, which really just accelerated the deterioration of that lower portion of Elm. So no plans to upgrade either any infrastructure under those two areas in the near future. Unlike Canaan, Condon, as you mentioned, Condon, of course, was a repair one year, and then a full rebuild, capital rebuild, subsequent year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the repair and paving of the Cornwallis Street sidewalk, and further the paving of Elm Street, and further approve the additional cost of $41,000 to the 2023-2024 capital investment plan. Voting is now open.
Excuse me.
Oh.
You're saying 41,000, but it's written here 42,000.
Oh my gosh.
I was thinking it was 20 and 21 for a total of 41, but I don't have it in front of me.
It was 20 and 21, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was 20 and 21.
Can you pull up that document, please, before we go? Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Yes, please.
This says 42, but that's not the full package. I need to go back to the cities.
Okay.
CAC recommendation, I thought was 20 and 21 for 42. Or for 41.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
This is from the cities meeting.
Okay,
Okay, 22 and 20 for 42.
22. Thank you, Counselor Maxwell. That's 42,000.
That's what I said.
Apologies for Zoom.
Yes. Back to the question. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Counselor Sabian, you have a conflict, and the time is 6:30. Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
This is with regards to the Center Square lease agreement. At the July 10th, 2023 meeting of CAC, Acting Development Officer Kirsten Duncan reviewed the request by a property owner for their 3 parking spaces to be released from the Center Square lease agreement. This agreement outlines use of Center Square for parking and it is renewed every 5 years. Staff are confident that they can relocate and improve these accessible parking spaces to elsewhere in Center Square. Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council approve the request of Mike's Clothing Limited to be released from the Center Square lease agreement as per the attached report. I so move.
Thank you. Could I have a second? Counselor Huntley? It has been moved and seconded that council approve the request from Mike's Clothing Limited to be released from the Center Square lease agreement as per the attached report. Is there any discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the request from Mike's Clothing Limited to be released from the Center Square lease agreement as per the attached report. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Zabian? And the time is 6:31. Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Next recommendation is with respect to the Housing Accelerator Fund. At the July 10th, 2023 meeting of CAC, Director Rachel Bedingfield reviewed the need for a housing initiative in Kentville and the preparation of a Housing Accelerator Fund grant to help address housing and homelessness. Without intervention, left unchecked to market forces, homelessness, gosh, Kate, is forecasted to increase significantly in town. CAC recommends that council support the development of a housing action plan for the town of Kentville, and further that council support the town in applying to the Housing Accelerator Fund grant program to support the development and implementation of Kentville's housing action plan. I so move.
Thank you. Second. Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council support the development of a housing action plan for the town of Kentville, and further that council support the town in applying to the Housing Accelerator Fund grant program to support the development and implementation of Kentville's housing action plan. Is there any discussion on this matter? Deputy Mayor?
I can't press my light because it's
No,
already
that's
on.
good.
So I understand that the submission has to be done by August the 18th. And when I reviewed it, it looks like it's quite an onerous task to do it. I'm assuming that everything is in place to do it and we're comfortable submitting by then.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Are there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council support the development of a housing action plan for the town of Kentville, and further, that council support the town applying to the Housing Accelerator Fund grant program to support the development and implementation of Kentville's housing action plan. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you.
Next recommendation to council is the Recreation Master Plan. At the July 10th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Rachel Bedingfield reviewed the proposed plan by an external group to develop a tennis facility near the Credit Union Recreation Center. Town staff need to collect more information through a needs assessment to support this proposal. The proposed lot of land would first need to be surveyed and appraised. Director Bedingfield clarified that this type of facility was not included in the regional assessment for a recreation facility. CAC recommends that council direct the CAO to complete a needs assessment for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which will include a needs assessment for a tennis facility. I so move.
Second. Councillor York, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council direct the CAO to complete a needs assessment for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which will include a needs assessment for a tennis facility. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. I said this a few weeks ago, and I'm gonna say it one more time. I don't think we need to do a needs assessment. You've got a group that want to come in and invest a lot of money on a building. I just feel that this assessment could take months. As we know, nothing is quick anymore, and I think we're just holding back a great opportunity for the town. So I won't support the needs assessment for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council direct the CAO to complete a needs assessment for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which will include a needs assessment for the tennis facility. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried.
Next recommendation to council is the Names List Committee. At the July 10th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, CAO Troke reviewed the Municipal Asset Naming and Renaming Policy, which will be supported by a Names List Committee. 3 names were brought to council to be appointed to this committee. Council members interested in sitting on this committee were to reach out to the Deputy Clerk. Council Advisory Committee recommends that council appoint the following residents to the Kentville Names List Committee: Mike Cameron, Carolyn Landry, and Gerald McPherson. I so move.
Thank you. And a second? Councillor York, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the appointment of the following residents to the naming committee: Carolyn Landry, Mike Cameron, and Gerald McPherson. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the appointment of the following residents to the naming committee: Carolyn Landry, Mike Cameron, and Gerald McPherson. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and that motion is carried. Thank you.
So part 2, I guess, a second motion as it relates to the Names List Committee would be that council recommends the appointment of the following council members to the naming committee, and them being Councillor Maxwell and Councillor York, and I'm happy to move that.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Zabian, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the appointment of the following council members to the naming committee: Councillor Maxwell and Councillor York. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the appointment of the following council members to the naming committee: Councillor Maxwell and Councillor York. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right, we'll move right into our councillor reports, and the reports are presented monthly by each member of council detailing their committee and community work in support of the town of Kentville. And for the members of our town that are watching, you may notice sometimes it doesn't seem like the whole month is there. However, typically, council are expected to hand in their reports on the Wednesday before the meeting. So typically, we have a lag in information. However, we try to keep up with it. Councillor Gerard, your report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The last council was June 26th, last CAC was July 10th. June 29th, we had Joint Fire Service. We have no contract yet with Camp Aldershot, so that was a contract, I believe, from the 70s or the 80s. And the new chief, or I guess he's not new now, wanted to get that revamped. So they've been in discussions, but there's nothing so far. There's no update on the 5, 10, or 15-year strategic plan. They've done some renos to their gear, or actually they took a room where they've bought equipment to clean the carcinogens and whatnot out of their gear. It doesn't have to be done after every fire, but it's one of those things where there used to be a group that sort of had a mobile wash that would come around and do it. Right now, we've got the equipment to clean their own gear. Membership was down as of our last meeting. They like to keep around 55, so I think it was 52 or 53 members that we have right now. And Kentville Volunteer Fire Department was part of a task force that was requested to go down and assist when the forest fires, I believe they were in the Barrington area. July 10th, I was at the special meeting of the rezoning. Why that says personnel, I don't know. July 27th, we had the police commission, and I will rely on the chair of the police commission, Councillor York, to give a report. And July 26th was at the water commission. Previous to that, Director Bell and I had spoke about hopefully not continuing with the fluoridation of the town water supply. And so what the water commission came to an agreement on was Director Bell is going to, I guess, petition the UARB or follow up with the UARB as to what it will take to not have to continue to fluoridate town water supply. And that is my report.
All right, thank you very much. Go ahead, Deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Councillor Gerard, with respect to the joint fire, the Camp Aldershot, I remember when I recall when I was on that committee that there was an exchange of funds that had to go back, 75 or 80,000, something like that.
Our side hadn't billed out.
Right.
For quite some time. We've received those, they've gone in, so there is, I believe, that exchange of funds now, but it's a matter of coming to an agreement on new numbers.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, if that's kind of the issue, is what those numbers look like.
Right now, it's a stipend for the year, plus every time the tires have to roll
Right.
onto Camp Aldershot.
Okay.
And what they want to do is they basically want to get it to like an insurance policy. This is what we pay for the year, and you're here when we need you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. It was light for committee meetings in the month of July. There was a King's Remo meeting and the Kentville Water Commission that I attended both, and the agendas are attached. Underneath the Town of Kentville event attendance, the dog park grand opening, which was a wonderful, happy day for sure. There's a lot of pups that are happy. The Shadow Minister visit from Ottawa, I did attach the info. I would like to talk a little bit about that day. In the morning, we were able to have a meeting with approximately 20 community groups who are all working towards an age-friendly community with seniors. After that, we left there and we had a meeting for municipal leaders who had about 2 hours with her. And we were lucky in the fact that when she arrived, she had also brought the Shadow Minister of Health. And that was a surprise, so he hung out with us all day and we got to learn from him. And then after the municipal meeting, we had a wonderful tour at Windsor Elms, and Sue McDougall was our tour guide, and we spent about a couple of hours there, and quite impressed with the facility that we have. And she even commented, she says, funny, she said, we have nothing like this at home. So we all took that as a pat on the back, so good job to everybody who works there for sure. I volunteered at the Canadian Bike Championship. If you've never volunteered with any of those biking championships, they are amazing. From the youth who start coming down there and they look, they're all coming at you, to the adults, they were really enjoying themselves. And I want to thank them for coming for sure, and the staff for putting it on. It was awesome. And that is pretty much it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. My report is quite light. We were asked to, I thought, pass it in a week early, and mine came in a week early, so it's a little light. But I've attended all my council meetings and all my CAC meetings. On June 21st, we had the public hearing for rezoning, and we had a good turnout for that. Lots of residents to express their concerns around the rezoning. And on July 10th, we had a special council meeting concerning the rezoning, and this was the second reading of the rezoning application at which we took a vote, and the rezoning was turned down. July 17th, we had, I attended the Heritage Committee meeting, and during this meeting, we gave our feedback on the Woofle and HRM heritage bylaws. Overall, we liked the Hants West one the best. We tasked the CAO to try and get the checklists used by these municipalities to determine if a building has heritage value. On July 7th, I attended the dog park opening. It was a very hot day, and so my little dog did not come down to that event. She does not like the heat. So it was the grand opening, a joint project between Kentville and the village of New Minas. Great to see many dogs there to take their first run, even though the day was hot. Well done to all involved with this project. And on July 14th, I dropped into the Mural Festival to take in some of the new murals that were being worked on. Congratulations to the organizers of this year's festival, and many thanks to the artists for brightening our town with their beautiful art. And it was really nice to see a historical mural, and I really appreciated that group taking the historical route and making sure we had something. So, and that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor. Your September report will be doubled in. All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So June 21st was the Kentville Business Community monthly meeting, and we were, of course, presented with the Treasurer's report along with the Facade Committee report and promotions events. There's 2 new businesses in town that they went and welcomed, the Dayan Sushi and Amatora Supply. There's a new president for KBC now, Andrew White. So Paul Dixon is now the past president. We had discussions around the Multicultural Festival that's upcoming in September, so I encourage you all to check out that date. And there were discussions around the Canada Cup and the night market associated with that event. June 21st was a council meeting where we held first reading for McDougall Heights. and the public hearing that was at the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department. July the 10th was the special council meeting where the second reading for the rezoning of McDougall Heights was held. And in my report, I did attach my comments around my rationale around how I voted with respect to the rezoning. So that's attached for people's review if they so wish. July the 10th was Investment Advisory Committee. We had our update from our investment advisor. We have a portfolio that's just north of 12 million. We had discussions around maturities, and there's some funds that we just transferred into the money market fund. We're parking those there till September, and that's generating a yield of about 4.55%. In the fall, as I noted, the Investment Advisory Committee will review possible options for the funds, whether those be bonds or GICs, remains to be seen. July the 17th was Regional Emergency Management Operations, where I chair that committee. The minutes are attached. We covered off our normal topics: wildfire season, hurricane season, comfort centers, vulnerable person registry. So I'll just comment on that again, and I try and comment on that whenever we have our REMO meetings, that particularly in light of the recent floods that we've had and with the fires that we've had, we're really trying to ramp up that vulnerable person registry. And so, you know, anybody that wishes to be added to that, they can reach out to Dan Stovall. They can make a call. They can reach out to any of us. I think it's very important to build that list. There are, I think, Councillor Huntley, you probably would, I think there's really only 100 people on that list, and there probably should be 400 or 500 people on that list. It's for all of Kings County. So another note for that. July 4th was the Mural Festival. July 22nd was the Canada Cup. I had some meetings with residents around the rezoning piece and discussions, and that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Just a matter on the vulnerable persons report. This is not just a Kings County thing. So there are vulnerable persons registries in other parts of our country. And if you have family, friends, or acquaintances who live elsewhere, have them check out vulnerable persons, because these are particularly of importance for people who are homebound, who need electricity because of oxygen requirements, and those sort of things. Because what will happen is, in an emergency, a fire department will go and make sure that they still have what they need, or to get them out of where they are if they're stuck in a building. So it's very, very important that we do this. And the design of the Kings County one actually came from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. So I will say that it is in different parts. So you know, we've done a good job here in Kings County, but I know that we can do better to make sure that everybody's on it. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, and through the chair, please. I was looking through the KBC minutes concerning, I don't know, I think it was the Mural Festival. Money received was listed $1,500 in cash from the town of Kentville and $1,500 in cash in kind support. I'm just wondering, is that over and above what KBC is already given from the town of Kentville? Did we give extra money for that? That $3,000, just wondering.
Typically for events, those come under our community development, and what you'll see is typically this is where she puts the marketing and those sort of things. So we do account for all the funds. So if we took out an article in, let's say, the newspaper or something, you know, pumped an article on Facebook, those costs would be in that $1,500. So this would be budgeted in under economic development.
But it's not part of the grant that we give to KBC?
No, this is above and beyond for events in downtown Kentville.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor York.
Thank you.
Oh.
There we I want to acknowledge that tomorrow is Emancipation Day, so it's the anniversary of the end of slavery in the British North America, or in the British Empire rather. But it does give us an opportunity to reflect on the continued legacy of slavery in North America. So I do want to take a moment to recognize that. Because, as it's been mentioned earlier this evening, when we do our reports, sometimes meetings are missed just because of the date and time. So in my report, you'll see that I have had 2 Board of Police Commissioners meetings, and it's just because of the date and time. One of the biggest takeaways that's happening from that group at the moment is that we have the retirement of our Chief of Police. So he will be leaving, I believe, in August or September, and we will have an acting chief at that time. So we want to thank him for his service with us and wish him well in his retirement. Secondly, that organization is working, or we're working really hard right now on getting a strat plan and a manual of operations so that we can understand how best to do the work that we're doing and how to organize ourselves so that when we do have a new board come in, they can hit the ground running and be in sync with the town of Kentville and the police service and the residents of the town of Kentville in terms of priorities and what needs to be done. So we're working away at that diligently. We'll also be attending a virtual conference here in August for the Canadian Association of Police Governance, the CAPG. The conference itself is happening in St. John's, Newfoundland. However, we're going to be attending virtually, so we have a flat rate that allows all of our members to attend for around $500. So it's a really good investment of our time and money, and we think it's a good opportunity for us to see what other police services are doing and what other boards of governance are doing across the country. So that's some big stuff that's happening out of the Board of Police Commissioners. As noted, we had a couple of special meetings and CAC meetings. Additionally, I took in Mural Festival with my family, which was a lot of fun. I do want to say kudos to some of the building owners who have taken a much more active role in the project and have allowed for our murals to reflect a lot more of the diversity of our town. So Councillor Zabian is one of those building owners, and his mural is my understanding that he has requested more diversity to be included, and it's wonderful to see that, so I thank you for your leadership on that. Additionally, the Canada Cup event that took place in town was absolutely outstanding. We had an overwhelming amount of participation, which was great, but we also got a few sort of surprise shout outs. So there was an Olympian who took part in the Canada Cup race, but also in their leisure time. They did the 4-cross track, which is the downhill run at Burger Hill, and declared it to be the best 4-cross track that she's ever ridden. So we'll take that as a feather in our cap, and it's a collective we that's most definitely in the Parks and Recs department. So I want to thank Rachel Beddingfield and her staff, and in particular Ashley Sheffield, who worked all weekend tirelessly to get that event up and running and making sure that everybody had what they needed and was where they needed to be. So kudos to that team and all the work that happened there. I took part in some of the mural prep work. My contributions are significantly less artful, but it was a lot of fun to be able to be on the front end of that festival as well. So it's a light month. I'm sure September will be a little meatier. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. So I attended all the council meetings that my colleagues mentioned. On June 28th, Kentville Volunteer Fire Department, Councillor Gerard has mentioned most of it. I'll just add that Tower 41 has now gone into, has been sent away for refurbishment, and that'll take about 3 months before that comes back. And there is a rescue pumper that's going to be funded through the 25-26 area rate. I'll speak on the Kentville Heritage Committee. We had discussion about what the criteria would be in establishing which properties would be deemed a heritage property. And there was discussion how the process is going to work. So we're going to see if we can come up with some kind of criteria to kind of score them. And we'll definitely take, we'll use Louis Comeau, pick his brain to see if we can get some info on some of these properties. Once we have something on paper, then we will, when the committee's comfortable with that, we will present it to council for review. And I did attend both audit meetings as I sit on that, and I'll touch on that, I guess, when we come up to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard.
Just through the chair and to either Councillor Zabian or Councillor Maxwell, has, on the Heritage Committee, have you guys, much like the Kentville Heritage, the museum over there. Have you thought about having some of the people that they have to give presentations to the Heritage Committee and recording it? Do you know, like you said, you were gonna use Louis Comeau, and I think we're gonna lose some of these folks in the next few years, and I think, you know, if you no, I mean, it's terrible to say, but these people have a lot of heritage, and people in my generation, right, don't have that. And I'm just wondering if, you know, if there's any way we can have, you know, videotape sessions with some of these older folks that they like to come and speak at the Heritage Committee, or, yeah. You can go ahead.
I'll turn on your mic.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, I hope Louis Comeau's not listening to that. No, we haven't done anything about bringing speakers in. We're working on a bylaw at the moment, and that's a priority. I think once we get a bylaw in and so on, then we can look at getting some speakers and so on. But I think the Kentville Historical Society, though, has done a fantastic job with recording history. They were working with Acadia University, David Duke, and they have a lot of that history is on I think cassette or DVD or whatever it is. Anyway, they've got they're doing a lot of work in that area. So I see that our priority right now is coming up with some sort of bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and this evening, we will not have a CAO update on the operational matters, and we'll go right into my report. And as you can see, I attended the same meetings as my colleagues, and I guess I'd like to focus on the Kentville events that I was allowed to or enabled to attend. The first one would have been the KCA Grade 8 graduation. Always a great day on the 29th of June when the Grade 8s graduate and they're off to NECEC, or in this case, two of them were actually going to other high schools. So it's kind of one of those bittersweet moments as the little kids turn into full-fledged teenagers and they're off to high school. Anyway, a really great ceremony, and they always do such a great job there. The 29th of June, that same day, I not only got to see the Grade 8 graduation, but I also got a tour of the regional sewer system. And I'm going to say that if you've never been to the regional sewer plant, it's really kind of a cool place. A little stinky that day, but you know what? Life is like that sometimes. And but it's pretty amazing, and it's the sheer size of it, I think, is more than anything. You know, where the water starts and where the water ends up with the lagoon system that we have. But it's a pretty cool place. Dog park, grand opening of the dog park, again, one of those great days. So I went from the dog park to Wolfville to Acadia University, and as Kathy has already said, although she was very nice about the way she said it, I'm going to say it was stinking hot that day, and went to the Acadia Arena for the Special Olympics opening ceremonies. And if it was hot outside, that arena was a sweatbox. Anyway, it didn't slow down the Special Olympians, because I'm going to tell you, they were in full glory. And our very own Philip Brown, of course, got to get up and show us his medal haul from Berlin. And there's no one prouder than Philip, or even his colleagues. I'm going to say his fellow Olympians were just absolutely thrilled with his success. And then on the 8th of July, I got to go back to Raymond Field and do medal presentations, and it was a blast. Oh my goodness, just absolutely incredible. And again, it was another one of those hot days, and these folks were running around that track like you would not believe, and then standing up for their medals. So it was pretty cool. And And the neat thing is that they were actually having a big dance that night. So everyone was very much focused on the social part of the event, because it's fun to have your bling, but that social part is the real reason for the meet. The 11th of July, I attended the meet and greet with the shadow ministers, MP Anna Roberts and MP Steve Ellis of the Minister of Health. And I had a lovely conversation with Steve Ellis, particularly about some of the changes that we see coming in family practice, and where we would go with that. So Steve Ellis is a physician. He's from Cumberland, Colchester, and very much up to date on what is happening in our province from that perspective. On the 19th of July, I visited the new Atlantic Poultry Hatchery, and that is in the former Robinson Cannabis site. I was in there just after the cannabis folks pulled out, and in there on the 19th of July, and the change is absolutely incredible. This operation is going to see the hatching of 20 million eggs, chicks a year, and this is for Nova Scotia, and they will actually process 18 million eggs to send over to Newfoundland for their hatchery. They're consolidating the operation out of New Minas and Fredericton in this single place, and everything is mechanized and computerized from the time that those eggs come in there till the time little fuzzy chicks go out the back door. It's absolutely incredible. And I got to meet some of the folks that work there, and one young man was an Acadia biology student, a graduate, who had spent a summer job there on a work, and he was back there for his work, and I said, was this your plan, to go into basically animal husbandry? And he said no, never, but the job was so diverse, and there was so much to learn that he thought it was where he wanted to be. So it was kind of another one of those really cool moments that you never know what you're going to hear from folks. On the 20th of July, I attended Town of Kentville training, How to Be an Ally. Excellent training session for members of council. If you have the opportunity to attend, please do. Again, on the 20th of July, I went to the Canada Cup opening ceremonies, and we had folks there from the Yukon, from BC, Team Alberta, across Canada, from coast to coast to coast, and every single one of them was raving about Kentville. The thing about going to one of these events is that you get to see our town from someone else's eye, and they were so thrilled to be here, and the ones who'd been here before couldn't wait to get back again, sort of thing, and to get back again next time around. So I did the opening ceremonies, and then I stuck around for the short track races. Oh my goodness, it's absolutely explosive. The women's race, the number 1 and number 2 were neck and neck the whole race, and number 3 at the end of the race, she hit this bump in the track, and she literally flew across the finish line and won the race. And she had been trailing third place the entire race. It was phenomenal. And the man was, it was absolutely scary. You actually had to move off of the fence because they were just so fast. Again, one of those things. And by the way, if you're not noticing, this is my first time to Canada Cup, because typically we hold it at the end of August, and that's typically the time that I go and visit my mother in northwestern Ontario, because they have that one day of summer that day. So anyway, my mother's not listening, so it's okay that I said that. I was also there on the 22nd of July, which was Saturday, for medal presentation. Now the thing with Saturday, as you know, was from Friday night to Saturday had been the storm and the floods. So we actually had volunteers who couldn't make it, and our pool person actually subbed in to provide our first aid, because our first aid provider from Windsor couldn't get out of her driveway. So it was really incredible. And when you think of what was going on in Windsor, West Hants, and other parts of our province, and here we were, a beautiful day, nothing but sunshine, holding a bike race for people from across Canada. You know that old theory about Nova Scotia weather and wait 5 minutes, it'll change, or that we all live in our own distinct weather zone. It was never more evident to people from across Canada. On Sunday, I went back again for medal presentation, and again, this was an Olympic trial. And we were actually giving out the jerseys, and from the jersey winners, they will pick our Olympic team, and they've all been to Kentville, Nova Scotia. So that's pretty cool. The audit committee pre-meeting team made the criteria, so the details are in here. I also got to attend the retirement of Dr. Ricketts at Acadia University, and the flower cart AGM, and again, the open house, and that is my report. All right, so we'll move on to our new business, and our new business is with regards to the recommendations from the audit committee. And the town of Kentville audit was conducted by the firm of Kenton Duffett, Chartered Professional Accountants, during the months of June and July of 2023. And the town of Kentville has committed to an audit committee composed of 3 members of council and 2 members of the public, as recommended by the Joint Municipal Accountability and Transparency Committee, our report, the JMAT, and this was done in 2017-2018. So I do have the letter from Kenton Duffett with regards to and I have it highlighted, and I do have it here. So in preparation for the financial statements, management is responsible, management being the town of Kentville, is responsible for establishing and maintaining an adequate internal control structure and procedures for financial reporting. The firm confirms that to council, the town's audited consolidated financial statement for the period ended March 31st, 2023 have been prepared in accordance with CICA, Public Sector Accounting Board, and Service Nova Scotia and Municipal Affairs accounting recommendations. Responsibilities as auditors. Their responsibility is to express an opinion on whether the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position, results of operation, and cash flow of the town in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. And they have provided us with an unqualified audit from that statement. There were no changes to the audit plan, which they made in January and March. They did not identify any significant matters that they wished to bring to the attention of council. There were no limitations placed on the scope of the auditors. The significant accounting policies used by the town of Kentville are described in our consolidated financial statements. And based on the audit work performed, the auditor is satisfied with the estimates made by management. They did not identify any financial statement disclosures. They have no non-trivial, unadjusted misstatements to the report. And during the course of the audit, any specific internal control matters we encountered that we wish to bring to council's attention will be reported separately in the management letter. And our auditor did that this evening when he spoke about the vacation pay having to be accounted for. And they have requested a number of written representations from management. So we will follow up that request with a letter out of our accounting department. And they are also required to communicate any disagreements with management, and they are pleased to inform us that there were no disagreements with management during the course of the audit. They are also responsible to tell us if an other accountant, if we retained a second opinion, and they are not aware of any consultations to have taken place. And all inquiries of management and our testing of financial records did not reveal any illegal or possible illegal acts. Testing of financial records and discussions with managements did not reveal any significant related party transactions not in the normal course of operations. And that document will be signed. So therefore, the recommendation coming from the Audit Committee recommends that council accept the 2022-2023 Audit Committee reports and documentation as presented. Someone could move that, please? Deputy Mayor, thank you for a second. Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council accept the 2022-2023 audit report and documentation as presented. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I'm going to take a couple of minutes and speak about my experience as a member sitting on the audit committee. I've been representing council on this committee for the past 3 years. And the first thing I want to do is I want to thank the staff and the finance department for their hard work. It's a lot of work taking care of books, and I know that as I do my own for my business, and I don't think that department gets thanked enough because they really are, they're involved in every project that we do in every department in this building. So I appreciate all they do. I also want to thank the citizens who sit on this committee, as well as our auditor, Mr. Force from Kenton Duffet. Some people may not understand how the audit process works in Kentville, or probably in most towns. The financial statements for the town of Kentville are prepared right here in this building. So unlike me, where I'd have a business, I'd go to an accountant and he would prepare my statements. That's not how it works here. So these statements are then reviewed after the auditors looked at them by the committee, which would include Mayor Snow, Deputy Mayor Savage, the 2 citizens, and myself. And when the auditor has completed their scope of work, they prepare what is called a management letter, which is addressed to all members of the committee. And I would note that it would also make sense for this letter to be distributed to council as well, as ultimately council will vote to approve the audit. These letters would be normal practice of an auditor, and they would write to draw our attention to certain matters which perhaps were identified during their audit of the financial statements. So I was part of this audit in 2021 and also 2022 and now in 2023. Unfortunately, I never saw a copy of this letter, nor did I even know it existed. I did request a copy of it for last year's audit, and I eventually was able to read it, and I do have that with me now. And this letter includes a recommendation that the senior management at the town of Kentville offer a report to council regarding any unusual, significant, or otherwise meaningful issues to council that may not fall in the aforementioned financial report presented to council. So if I hadn't asked for that letter, I wouldn't have it now. So this brings me to transparency. I believe every elected official should be transparent with the public. You may or may not be aware that Kentville was and is engaged in several disputes. In last year's audit, these disputes were reported and the legal costs associated with each dispute was noted, as well as an explanation of each dispute. You can find this information historically in every year of financial statements, including last year's financial statements. This information provides transparency, which is what it's supposed to do. In the financial statements for this year, though, you're not going to find this information. For whatever reason, they're not included. The legal fees which would be part of the disputes are put into a category called general government services. And within this category, the town used approximately $1.6 million. Within that, all I can say that I've able to figure out is that the legal fees were $97,000 over last year's budget. Unfortunately, we don't have a breakdown of the legal fees, but I believe last year's was around $86,000, and I could stand corrected on that. So we'd add another $97,000 on that, and that should give us this year's. These disputes would include the former Robinson property, the defamation case against Mayor Snow, as well as many others that myself as a councillor am not aware of. Last year, I do recall Councillor Maxwell asking for a report of all the legal disputes associated with the town of Kentville and up-to-date costs. To my knowledge, this has not been provided, and I definitely have not seen it. As an elected official, it is my right and my job to feel confident and that I am receiving all of the information that I need to so that I can make wise decisions, and I do not feel this is the case. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the town of Kentville and the citizens. We should be a council that prides itself on being honest and transparent with the citizens. There should never be a worry in being upfront with expenses. At the end of the day, this is not our money, and we are supposed to be working for the citizens of Kentville. So I'm not going to support any motion to approve these statements as provided. And as I always say, if there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to seek. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So a couple of items, just with respect to the comments Councillor Zabian made. We did have a conversation at the audit meeting on Thursday with respect to the legal fees and the notation of those in the financial statements. So I know that Mr. Forrest did cover that off in commenting sort of whatever reasons they're not included, he did actually comment as to why they weren't included in these financial statements. I'm trying to go back from memory here, and I know he's not here now. But I believe he said, and maybe the director might want to comment on this with respect to what he had said. But I think it was if they were not of a material nature, or if there was not any expenses anticipated for that year, that they didn't have to be pointed out in the financial statements. One of the items that I wanted to read from the report that Director Matthews had done up with respect to the audit committee was that, it's very short. It talks there about significant investment in tangible capital assets in support of citizens, services to citizens. It talks about the business park development, a population surge of 6%, enhanced community engagement about the town with respect to poised continued growth. And as stewards of tax and ratepayer dollars, these consolidated financial statements demonstrate our commitment to transparency, understandability, and accountability. So I make that comment, and if it is in order that Director Matthews comment on what Mr. Force had commented on with respect to why they weren't included, or the comments, perhaps that can happen. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. There are a couple of things that I just wanted to make mention of. I noticed that the first time that I heard about a management letter was in the mayor's report. And you talked about a management letter that we got last year, but we didn't see it. Again, we have one this year. Mayor Snow, you read it. For me, I like to have it in front of me so I can read it and understand it, and just to have it read out, it isn't good enough for me. I need to be able to see it and read it. And so I'm a little disappointed that we're not seeing those management letters. I think they're important. And in the future, I would definitely like to see the management letters along with the documents that, the financials that we're looking at. I also was looking through the audited financial statements, and I noticed a heading called General Government Services. And just asking a few people what that was, I find that's our legal, I guess. And I don't like that term, General Government Services. To me, it doesn't tell the public what that category is about. And to me, that speaks with transparency. We might know what it is. I personally didn't know what it was without asking some questions. And so the chance that the public would know what General Government Services was all about is pretty slim. So I would like us to look at, or staff to look at, maybe renaming that section so that it is understandable by council and by the public. So it's just when I can't make sense of some of these things that then I'm wondering about, our transparency, and are we being as transparent as we should be. I do agree with Councillor Zabian and what he said with, listing the legal as well, the individual. I just think it's important to have those figures there. Again, it looks like, we might have been not putting everything out in front. I'm sure that's not the case, and I'm reassured by the auditor that our financials are good and everything is really good. But I would like, those couple of things attended to before we review an audit another time, because it makes it a lot easier personally for me to understand, but I also think for the public as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I will clarify that what I read to you was not a management letter. What I read to you was the letter that Kenton Duffett provides to council with regards to what their job is and what they do. A management letter is to the audit committee. It is not to council. It's to the audit committee, such that they can look at it and figure out how to resolve the issue that has been highlighted by the audit. And in both cases, in 2022, when we received the letter, at that time, the Director of Finance changed the way that the statements looked and added what at the time she felt was a significant legal issue that may affect the finances of the town. So that was the criteria, affect the finances of the town. As you know, we have insurance, and we use that insurance, so in most cases, we would not pay more than the deductible off of that insurance policy. So therefore, it would not have a financial effect on the town, and our auditor explained that to us, and that's why there are no legal issues in this letter, because there's nothing of significance that would change the financial health of the town. So that was last year's, 2022. The 2023 letter was the one with regards to vacation pay. And what happened was, at one point, the town of Kentville paid out backdated vacation that someone had held, didn't use when they were terminated. And in 2022, when the policy was changed, the HR policy was changed such that employees were supposed to take all of their all of their vacation, and if they didn't, then we had to have a pot of money so that when they left, the pot of money was there. That was discovered during the audit, and immediately we took the money, which would have typically been money that went into reserves, and we put it into this vacation pot. So that was the management letter. But as I say, the management letter is to the audit committee. It's not to council. This is the letter that goes to council, and it's not, you aren't seeing a copy of it because it's not signed. So typically, when the entire package goes together, this letter will be in that package that you will receive, that you've received on an annual basis. So that's why you don't have it, is because with an audit, we have to have everything in place before we release letters to make sure that we've ticked all the boxes and dotted all the Ts and dotted all the Ts and crossed all the Is. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. It's just that we're going to vote on accepting this, these audited financial statements, and I don't know if I'm an overseer, if my job as a counselor is to oversee, then I think those management letters should come to council. We should be privy to them, and you know, if we're going to vote, maybe I would have a question about that vacation pay. I don't, but last year I may have had a question about some legal, and you know, I think if I don't have all the information, then how can I do that oversight and feel comfortable that I have seen and heard everything? And so that's why I would like to, you know, I don't know if, maybe they've never gone to council before, but, you know, maybe I think it might be a good idea to have them go to council in the future, so that we do have all the information on which to make a decision.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable voting when it feels like there's other things that might come up later, and yet I've already voted and I haven't asked a question, so that's my concern.
All right.
Okay.
The other thing that I wish to point out is that you do have a committee, and your committee makes a thorough review of these documents with staff and the auditor, and makes a recommendation to council. However, there's no reason why we can't provide this documentation to council. As the auditor did point out, the recommendation to present to ask council to accept these was unanimous at committee level. And any issues were, as he said, fulsomely discussed at that time. And, you know, as far as the transparency and the accountability, it was all there. And the town of Kentville continues to maintain that.
And certainly, I appreciate the work of the committee, and that's good, but I don't like to feel like a rubber stamper. I want to look through the documents and make sure that I'm good with everything. I have faith in the committee, but I'm still an overseer, and I would like to have that opportunity to have all the information before I vote.
All right, thank you. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow, for your information you provided, but I just want to say that you mentioned insurance, and that's great. I know the town has insurance, but it's still listed here that we were $97,000 over last year's expenses in legal. So we did spend excess of $97,000 over last year. So that's aside from insurance. And my other thing is this letter that we're talking about, that you explained to Councillor Maxwell. As you said, she's not on the committee, and it's a letter to the committee members. As far as I can speak for myself, I've never seen it for the last 3 years, so I'm not sure where it's been. Is there an answer to that, or how come we've never seen it? Because you've been on it a lot longer than I have, so is there a reason that we didn't see it for the last 3 years?
It wasn't provided to us by staff.
Okay, but wouldn't it go, did you see a copy of it yourself in the last 3 years?
I actually, as I told you before, had the one for 2018.
Oh, you haven't seen it in 5 or 6 years?
So the one from 2022, I received in September.
Okay.
It was dated July the 11th.
Now, would
I
it,
received it in September.
wow, months after. Would that not go to the CEO as well?
No, it does not. It goes
Oh.
only to the Director of Finance.
Okay, even though the letter kind of,
It goes to the Director of Finance.
but wouldn't the CEO oversee the, wouldn't he look
The
at the
audit,
audit? Yeah.
the audit is contained within the Finance Department.
Okay, I just can't figure out why a director would withhold a letter, a management letter like
I
that.
don't know that
Yeah.
anything was withheld. I am
Yeah.
telling you when I
Okay.
received the
That's
letter.
alarming though, like 2018 to now, that's 3, 5, 6 years.
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
that I'm not alarmed.
Yeah.
Because.
No, I don't mean alarm. The town, we're good. I don't mean that in a way, by any means, and I'm not, we've got a great staff complement here, and our books are fine. I'm not questioning the validity of our books. I just want to make that clear. Our books, I know, are up to date, and we've got great people down there. I'm not at all saying that, nor am I questioning our auditor. I want to make that clear. I just think that being a little bit more forthcoming with some of these things is not a bad thing. And I think even Mr. Force even said when he was here, if you're forthcoming with information, it's all the better for you in the long run. He did say that. And he didn't say that those notes shouldn't be included. He said it would be up to the committee, obviously, if you wanted to. At no point did he say you can't put them in. They were put in last year. I found them very useful myself, and I'm sure that the public did as well. I just find it a little bit alarming myself now is that you're saying you haven't seen this letter since 2018 and you've been mayor now for 2 terms. So I'm a little concerned. I'm glad that we were able to see it this year, and hopefully we do get a copy of the one for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the note in the financial statements around the legal matters that we spoke about at the audit committee, you know, Andy had put in there that there were a number of legal claims against the town, that they were varying amounts, and that provisions had been made in the consolidated statements as appropriate. Further says it's not possible to determine the amounts that may ultimately be assessed against or in favor of the town with respect to these claims. However, management believe that any such amounts would not have a material impact on the financial position of the town. So I know when we met on Thursday, we talked about that and sort of went around the table to see who was comfortable with that comment, and a number of folks around the table had comments around it, and ultimately we had made the decision that we were comfortable with that note to the financial statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to accept the 2022-2023 audit report and documentation as presented. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. The next motion or recommendation from the Audit Committee is with regards to the reappointment of the firm of Kenton Duffett Chartered Professional Accountants. They competed and were awarded for a 5-year auditing services contract with the town of Kentville in 2019. The Audit Committee recommends that the town of Kentville reappoint the firm of Kenton Duffett Chartered Professional Accountants to provide audit services for the year 23-24. The firm was previously selected and approved for a 5-year contract with the town. Reappointment occurs annually as a matter of form. And the motion is that council reappoint the firm of Kenton Duffett Chartered Professional Accountants to provide audit services for the year 2023-2024.
So moved.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. Second. Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council reappoint the firm of Kenton Duffett Chartered Professional Accountants to provide audit services for the year of 2023-2024. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to reappoint the firm of Kenton Duffett Chartered Professional Accountants to provide audit services for the year 2023-2024. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. The Audit Committee recommends that council appoint the following citizen committee voting members to the 2023-2024 Audit Committee as per G57 Committees of Council Policy, Ms. Susan McDougall and Mr. Jim Noonan. The motion is that council appoint the following citizen committee voting members to the 2023-2024 Audit Committee, Ms. Susan McDougall and Jim Noonan.
So moved.
Deputy Mayor, thank you for the second. Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council appoint the following citizen committee voting members to the 2023 Audit Committee, Ms. Susan McDougall and Mr. Jim Noonan. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I want to thank Mr. Noonan and Ms. McDougall for sitting on this committee. I know how busy life can be, and they take time out of their schedules, so it's greatly appreciated. What concerns me, though, is the wording of policy G57, specifically the language in the membership section 4.9.1.3, where it states that the audit committee consists of 2 citizen representatives appointed by council for a 2-year term of service. So I went back into the minutes, and I know Ms. McDougall has sat on this audit committee as far back as 2018. I don't know who sat on in 2017. I had trouble on our system going back past 2018. So this would mean if she was consecutively on this, she has been on this for 6 annual audits, and she's definitely an asset on the committee. In June of 2021, Ms. McDougall was appointed to sit on the committee for what seems to be a third 2-year stint. According to the language in policy G57, she would now have completed 2 more years, so the commitment would be fulfilled now. I have no problem with Ms. McDougall on this committee. She's great, but what I'm concerned about is that we're not following the policy. And if we don't agree with it, then perhaps we as a council should sit down and review it, because my real concern is what message we're sending members of other committees in town. Last fall, you'll recall that 2 citizens were removed from the police commission and told that their time was up and that they could no longer be part of the police commission. And I also recall very well the father of one of our members on this council being removed from the investment committee for the same reason after providing over a decade of service. And I know firsthand how that affected him. So what's troubling me right now is the message that we're sending to the public. And what I take from this is, if we like you, you can stay. But if we don't like what you have to say, you're not gonna play in the sandbox and we're gonna kick you out.
Point of order.
And
Thank
Point
you.
of order.
Your point of order?
My point of order is with respect to Councillor Zabian's comments that is indicating that people are no longer on committees because they were not liked. And I think that's inappropriate, and I don't think it's correct.
Thank you.
That's my rationale.
Your point is upheld. Councillor Zabian, I'm going to ask you to take mind of what you're saying. The other thing I wish to point out is that as a committee, you voted, and as has already been pointed out by our auditor, we had unanimous, and now you are airing these complaints publicly, yet you did not take the time to air them in committee.
actually, Mayor Snow, I did. I asked you if Ms. McDougall was up, and you said she had 1 year left.
Exactly.
But she doesn't, because I went back and reviewed the minutes. So I have them here too if you want to see them. You gave false information to me, so.
I did not give you false information.
you
I'll
did,
call
Mayor
that
Snow.
a
You
point of
said-
order.
well, that
No, I
is-
did not. I was using the document from last year.
Oh, my
That
goodness.
said that she was appointed in 2021. Do not say that I
So
gave
it's
you false information.
2023 now, so the 2 years are up. So you're correcting.
No, what I said to you was that our policy permits us as committees to recommend people for a second term. So any member can serve for 4 terms. That's what our policy says.
All our committees?
All of our committees. It's in the standard, and then specific committees have specific details with them.
I don't think that's correct, because I know those people on the commission didn't serve 4 terms. But regardless, I'm gonna finish my note here. So, again, this has nothing to do with any of the members. This is a general comment that if you are going to put people on committees, and if the committee has a timeline of 2 years, then that 2 years should be up, and you should rightfully advertise for new representation. That's just how it works, and it should be the same for everybody. And I disagree with what you've said now, because there have been many people who have been removed from committees with the explanation that their tenure is up. And other people are able to continue on with no advertisement of new membership. So there is something there. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? Oh, sorry, Counselor Maxwell.
Thank you. I'm just listening to this back and forth. I was on the police commission when we had some issues with length of terms. Councillor Zabian mentioned 2018. 2018 to 2023 is, I think, 5 years. Do we know for sure how many years this Ms. McDougall has served for the town of Kentville? If we go back to 2018, then we're looking at 5 years. If it was 2017-18, that would make 6 years. And I know people were hurt in the police commission with publicity put out asking for people to sit on that committee. And so, I do have a concern with this conversation. Yeah, I would like to know how many years exactly. If we don't know how many years exactly, then I'd like to postpone this until we do know that.
Thank you. Counselor York.
Thank you. I was just going to reiterate what Councillor Maxwell has already said, that if we want to be sure and if it would make everybody feel more comfortable before moving forward, I understand that getting people on a committee is sort of not urgent, but it's nice to have it tidied away before we take our summer break. However, I don't know that the audit committee has a major urgency as we just kind of wrapped one up. Is it possible to postpone this vote until we can get those dates confirmed?
We can do that.
Okay.
So do we wish to table? Well, actually, we can't table it because that's go back to committee. So this will go back to committee. Yeah, we'll send it back to committee. Deputy Mayor.
Perhaps,
as recommendation.
perhaps Miss McDougal knows when she commenced?
The error is on me,
Okay.
because my document says one member of the public was appointed in June of 2021. And as Councillor Zabian is saying, that, no, she was not appointed in 2021, she was appointed in 2018.
2018.
If that is so, and I'm afraid I don't have my documents from 2018, so the error would be mine, because I said she only had 1 year left, based on this information.
Understood, yeah.
So it's my error to take back to the committee. Is that acceptable? By consensus, does anyone have an objection to taking this back to committee? All right.
Is this table?
It's a recommendation from a committee.
I can simply withdraw my motion if you so wish.
Okay. So the motion is withdrawn.
Sorry, Mayor,
can
I?
Just, can you wait?
Yep.
So the motion is withdrawn, and it will go back to committee. Councillor Zabian, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, I'm not, we don't really have to go back to 2017 or 18 or 16 or whatever year that Ms. McDougal started. That's kind of irrelevant because it's a 2-year term, and her last appointment was in 2021 of June, so she's wrapped up 2 years now. That's according to the minutes, and you can go back and look at June 2021's minutes. So that was the beginning of her 2 years, and now she's done 2 audits. So you're really looking for another 2-year term for whomever. The solution really is to put a call of interest out, and if she wants it and nobody else wants it, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I just, going backwards, you know, we passed that. What's the point of going back and saying she's had 3 terms or 2 terms? That's kind of, it's not really important right now. It's kind of done and it's over with. But I just think if we're going to be fair to all the people in Kentville and there may be nobody else that wants, you know, interested in this, and we may very well be here in the same spot, but I think it's just the process and the policy that we have, and we should follow them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right. You've got that detailed? Motion withdrawn? Okay, we have no correspondence for this evening's meeting. However, we do invite citizens to make comment to council on any matter currently before council. Items not on the agenda will not be entertained at this meeting. And please state your name and address. Your comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Keogh, and I live at 29 Alicia Boulevard. And I only have some questions, and it's information that I'm obviously not sure of at this point in time, but a few things that were said here tonight regarding...
Can you fix the mic,
Okay.
please? Thank you.
Is that better?
They won't hear you.
Put the table up.
I could raise this table. Wait, no. That's apparently I don't know how. Anyway, the questions that I have are regarding some of the comments that you made about the financial statements. Now, I haven't seen them yet, but I'm sure you're all very aware that I follow them very closely. And talking about the legal fees, because that's one of the ones that I really watch. Councillor Sabian said something about that you spent $97,000 over last year's amount or budget, or, but that's, anyway, if what you spent last year was $86,000, which would mean that you spent $183,000 in legal fees this year, like $183,000. You budgeted $60,000. The budget this year for 2023-24 is $120,000, so I remember commenting that that was pretty significant. But you're telling me there's no notes, and I'm not interested in the idea of claims and things like that that are covered by insurance. This is legal fees, like we've actually paid lawyers, am I right? So this will all be in the financial statements, because there should be something that if you've gone over budget, over $60,000 to $183,000, there should be, like, that's significant, like, that's material. And as the auditor said here tonight, what's in those financial statements, a reasonable person should still come away with the opinion, have no change in their opinion of those statements if there was more detail provided. So hence the reason why you don't provide any more detail. But you're over your budget by 300%. Like, anyway, I haven't seen the financial statements yet. I'm sure, like, in your budget, there's always been a line item for legal. I'm sure there's a line item there for it, and I'll be able to evaluate it a little bit more. And I'm sure you know, I'll give you my opinion. But can somebody explain that? Like, I'm seriously, honestly, just looking for an explanation on that. Like, is there no notes at all to the legal fees, not the, nothing?
This is your time for comments.
Well,
It's not a question and answer period, it's comments from you.
Do you not think that we should get an answer to that, though? Like, the public are entitled to an answer as to what you spent, 183, if that's right, if that number is right, like maybe you could just tell me that. Anyway, I'll look at the financial statements and take a look. Wow. Sorry, Jen.
All right. There being no further business, I would call for adjournment, and the time is 7:50. Thank you very much. Have a good summer, everyone.